My name is Harold, and I am 82 years old. 5 years ago, I moved into a nursing home with a single suitcase, a worn coat, and the quiet belief that my life was essentially over. Not in a dramatic way, not in a sad movie way, just in the slow, realistic way that happens when your body weakens. Your friends disappear one by one, and the world starts treating you like a chapter that has already been read. People spoke to me kindly, but differently, slower, simpler, like my story was finished. I believed them. I told myself this place was where life went to rest, where days blended together, where you waited for meals, for medication, for visits that grew less frequent, for the end. The first months were the longest of my life. Every hallway smelled faintly of disinfectant and boiled vegetables. The television in the common room was always too loud. The clocks seemed to move slower than anywhere else in the world. I spent most of my time sitting by the window watching cars come and go, wondering where everyone was rushing to. I used to rush too. I worked 40 years in construction, built houses other people lived their lives in. I told myself I'd slow down later. Later never came until my knees gave out. In that window, I felt invisible, like life was happening somewhere else. Then one afternoon, a volunteer named Clara walked in carrying a small cart filled with paper, colored pencils, and a sign that read, "Art Class, Beginner's Welcome." I almost laughed. Art at my age? My hands shook when I held a cup of tea. What business did I have drawing? But Clara smiled and said something simple that changed everything. You don't have to be good. You just have to start. So I sat down. My first drawing was terrible. Crooked lines, shaky circles, a house that looked like it might fall over. But something strange happened. For the first time in months, I forgot about time. I forgot about pain. I forgot about being old. I was just there, present, alive. I kept going. Every Tuesday, every Thursday. Slowly, my lines steadied. My houses got straighter. Then I tried trees, then faces. Then one day, without realizing it, I drew the nursing home window, the same one I used to stare out of feeling like life was gone. But this time, I drew sunlight coming through it. And I realized something quietly powerful. I wasn't waiting anymore. I was living again. That small art class changed everything. But it wasn't just me. Down the hall lived Margaret, 79 years old, widowed, quiet. She barely spoke during meals. One day she sat next to me in art class. She whispered that she used to dream of speaking Italian. Her husband promised they would visit Rome one day. They never did. Life got busy. Money was always needed elsewhere. After he passed, she thought that dream died with him, until a volunteer started a language group just for fun, no tests, no pressure. Margaret joined. At first she struggled, forgot words, mixed things up, but she laughed. I hadn't heard her laugh before. Now she practices every day. She labels objects in her room in Italian. Door, window, chair. Last month she told me proudly, "I can hold a conversation now." Her eyes sparkled like a young girl's. Then there's Frank, 85, grumpy as a storm cloud when he first arrived, always complaining, always sitting alone. One evening during bingo, he sat next to Eleanor. She teased him about his lucky number. He teased back. They started eating meals together. Now, they take evening walks around the courtyard hand in hand. Last week, Frank announced they were official at 85. Love found him again. None of us expected that. But life didn't ask our expectations, it just showed up. What I learned living here is something no one tells you when you're younger. We don't stop living because we get old. We get old when we stop living. This place isn't a waiting room for death. It's a community of stories still being written. I've seen people learn instruments for the first time at 90. I've seen a woman publish her first poem at 87. I've seen friendships stronger than any I had in my youth. We celebrate birthdays like victories. We cheer for tiny improvements in walking. We cry when someone leaves us. But we also laugh a lot. I used to believe starting over required youth, energy, money, perfect health. Now I know it requires something much simpler. Willingness. The courage to try while knowing you may not be great. The humility to be a beginner again. The openness to surprise. My drawings now hang in the hallway. Clara framed one of them. A crooked but sunny landscape. Underneath she wrote, "Harold started at 81. People stop and look at it, some smile. Some ask me how long I've been painting. When I tell them, they're shocked. And I always say the same thing. I wish I'd started sooner, but I'm glad I didn't wait any longer. We spend so much of life thinking it's too late. Too late to change careers. Too late to learn something new. Too late to fall in love. Too late to chase dreams. That lie follows us quietly year after year, until one day we're old enough that it sounds believable, but it's still a lie. As long as you are breathing, life is offering you a blank page. Maybe you can't write as fast as before. Maybe your hands shake. Maybe your memory isn't perfect, but the page is still there, waiting. I don't know how many years I have left. None of us do. But I know this. The last years of my life have been fuller than the decades before them. Not because I have more time, but because I finally use it. I don't rush anymore. I notice sunsets. I enjoy conversations. I try things without worrying if I'm good at them. I live. If you are reading this and thinking you're too old to begin again, I promise you're not. If people in wheelchairs can learn languages, if shaky hands can create art, if lonely hearts can find love at 85, then there is hope for all of us. Life doesn't end when circumstances change. It only ends when curiosity does. So start something. Today, not tomorrow. Not when it's easier. Now. Try the class. Write the page. Make the call. Learn the skill. Open your heart. Even if it feels awkward. Even if you're afraid. Even if you think it's pointless. Because the only thing truly pointless is waiting for a time that may never come. I thought my life ended when I walked into this nursing home. In reality, a new chapter quietly began. And it turned out to be one of the most beautiful ones. It's never too late. Not at 40. Not at 60. Not at 80. Not even here. As long as your heart beats, your story is still unfolding. And sometimes, the best beginnings come when you least expect them. But realizing the story is still unfolding is one thing. Deciding what to write on the next page is another. For me, the next page turned out to be a literal wall. It happened about 3 months after I started the art class. I was rolling my wheelchair down the East Wing hallway, the one that leads to the cafeteria, and for the first time, I really looked at the wall. It was beige, a pale, sickly, institutional beige, scuffed by years of rubber tires and medication carts. It stretched for 40 feet, empty and silent. In my construction days, a wall like that was just a partition. Drywall, studs, insulation. A barrier to keep the wind out or to separate the kitchen from the living room. But looking at it that Tuesday, I didn't see a barrier. I saw a canvas. I stopped my chair. I sat there for 20 minutes just staring. Clara, the art volunteer, found me there. She looked worried. "Harold, did your battery die? Do you need a push?" I pointed at the wall with my cane. "Clara," I said, "this wall looks like boredom." She laughed, relieved I wasn't having a stroke. "Well, it's a nursing home, Harold. Beige's the official color. I think it's in the regulations." "Does it have to be?" The question hung in the air between us. "What are you thinking?" she asked, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "I'm thinking," I said, feeling a spark in my chest that I hadn't felt since I bid on my last big project in 1998, "that we have a lot of painters in your class now, and we have a lot of empty space." It took us 4 weeks to convince the director. Mrs. Gable is a nice woman, but she worries about liability. She worried about the smell of paint. She worried about us falling out of our chairs. She worried it would look like graffiti. "If it looks terrible," I told her, sitting straighter than I had in years, "I will pay for the beige paint to cover it up myself. From my pension." She looked at me. She saw the set of my jaw. The same jaw that stared down foremen and architects for 40 years. "Okay, Harold," she sighed, "but nothing political, and nothing risque. Just landscapes, I promised, and maybe a few memories." We started on a Monday. It wasn't just an art project. It became a mission. I recruited Margaret. I told her we needed the hills of Tuscany on the west side. She flushed pink. "Oh, Harold, I can't paint that big." "You don't have to paint the whole thing," I said. "Just the grapes. You handle the vineyard." I recruited Frank. Frank grumbled. He said art was for people who didn't have arthritis. "Frank," I said, "I need a foreman. Someone to make sure we don't slack off. And besides, Eleanor is painting the flowers, and she needs someone to mix the greens. Frank was there the next morning at 8 a.m. sharp, but the biggest surprise was Leo. Leo wasn't a resident. He was 19 years old. He was doing court-ordered community service for minor vandalism. He usually spent his hours mopping floors, wearing a hoodie pulled low over his eyes, with headphones blasting music so loud I could hear the bass from 3 feet away. He looked at us like we were aliens, wrinkled, slow, trembling aliens. On the third day of painting, I dropped my brush. It rolled under a radiator. I couldn't reach it. My back doesn't bend that way anymore. Leo was mopping nearby. He stopped. He looked at me. He looked at the brush. He sighed, the heavy, dramatic sigh of a teenager who carries the weight of the world, and walked over. He picked up the brush. "Thanks, son," I said. He looked at the wall. We had just started the outline of a large oak tree. "The perspective is off," he mumbled. I blinked. "Excuse me?" He pointed a long, skinny finger at the branch. "That branch, the way it angles, it wouldn't hold weight. It looks flat." I looked at the boy, really looked at him. "You paint, Leo?" He shrugged, retreating into his hoodie. "I draw sometimes, whatever." "Here," I said, holding out the brush. "Show me." "I can't. I'm working." "I'm the resident council president." I lied. I wasn't. "I'm ordering you to fix my tree. I'll take the heat with the janitor." Leo hesitated. Then he took the brush. In 3 strokes, he fixed the shadow. The branch suddenly looked round. Heavy. Real. "You have a good eye," I said quietly. "It's just light and shadow," he muttered, handing the brush back. "Leo," I said, "put the mop down. We need a sky, and none of you ass can reach the top part of the wall." That wall became the center of our universe for 3 months. And something magical happened in that hallway. The smell of disinfectant was replaced by the smell of acrylics and coffee. The silence was replaced by conversation. We learned about Leo. His girlfriend had dumped him. He felt stupid in school. He didn't think he had a future. He thought he was broken. "I felt broken too," Margaret told him one afternoon, while she dabbed purple paint onto a cluster of grapes. "When my husband died, I thought I was just leftover pieces." Leo looked at this 79-year-old woman in a wheelchair. "What did you do?" "I kept breathing," she said, "and I learned Italian, and now I'm painting a vineyard." We learned that Frank used to build model ships. That's why his hands, though shaky, were so precise with the details. We learned that Eleanor used to be a botany teacher. She corrected our flowers. "That's not how a lily bends, Harold," she'd scold gently. "It seeks the light. It doesn't droop unless it's dying." "It's a metaphor, Eleanor," I'd argue. "It's botanically incorrect," she'd fire back. And we laughed. God, we laughed. We made a mess. I got blue paint on my best trousers. Frank got green paint in his eyebrows and looked like a mossy owl for a week. But the wall grew. It wasn't just a picture, it was a tapestry of us. Margaret's Italian hills rolled into the construction site I remembered from 1965. My steel beams faded into Eleanor's garden of lilies and roses, and above it all, Leo's sky. A bright, limitless blue with clouds that looked so fluffy you wanted to touch them. One afternoon, toward the end of the project, I found Leo sitting on the floor, staring at a section of the wall. He looked sad. "What's wrong, kid?" I asked. "My hours are up on Friday," he said. "I'm done." "You say that like—" "It's a bad sentence. You're free." "I know," he said. He picked at a speck of dried paint on his jeans. "It's just, nobody listens to me out there. You guys are the only ones who don't look at me like I'm a screw-up." I rolled closer and put a hand on his shoulder. It was bony and tense. "Leo," I said, "you helped a bunch of octogenarians build a masterpiece. You're not a screw-up. You're an artist." He looked up, eyes wet. "You come back," I said sternly. "You come back and visit, or I'll come find you and critique your perspective." He smiled, a real, crooked, teenage smile. When we unveiled the mural, the whole home came out. Nurses, kitchen staff, families visiting their parents. Mrs. Gable cried. She actually cried. "I didn't know," she whispered, touching the painted bark of the oak tree. "I didn't know we had so much color in us." That night, I lay in bed, my body aching in that familiar, worn-out way. But my mind was racing. I realized that the waiting room concept of nursing homes is a choice. Yes, we are waiting for the end. Everyone is. The 19-year-old is waiting for it too. He just thinks it's further away. But the waiting doesn't have to be passive. You can decorate the waiting room. You can dance in the waiting room. You can paint a 60-foot mural in the waiting room. The seasons changed. Winter came, hard and cold. The mural kept us warm. Every time we passed it, we saw our summer. But time, as it always does, demanded its due. In January, Frank had a stroke. It happened at lunch. One minute he was teasing Eleanor about her peas. The next he was slumped over. The ambulance lights were too bright against the snow. The siren was too loud. The days that followed were quiet. The art class felt empty. Eleanor sat by the window, not painting, just twisting a handkerchief in her hands. "He won't come back the same," she whispered to me. "I know it." "He's a fighter, Elle," I said, though I was scared too. Frank did come back, but she was right. His right side was paralyzed. His speech was slurred. The man who teased and grumbled was replaced by a man who looked confused and frustrated. He sat in the common room, staring at his knees. He wouldn't look at the mural. He wouldn't look at Eleanor. He was ashamed. Ashamed of the drool. Ashamed of the weakness. I watched this for a week. Then I did what I had to do. I went to my room and got a sketchbook. I wheeled over to Frank. He didn't look up. "Frank," I said. "Go away," he mumbled. The words were thick, heavy. "I need your help," I said. He snorted, a bitter sound. "Use less." "I'm drawing a boat," I said. "A schooner, like the ones you used to build. But I can't remember how the rigging goes." He stayed silent. I opened the book and placed it on his lap. "Is it 2 ropes here or 3? I forgot." Frank looked at the drawing. It was wrong, and I knew it was wrong. I had drawn it wrong on purpose. His left hand, his good hand, twitched. He looked at me with those stormy eyes. "Wrong," he slurred. "Show me," I said. I put a charcoal pencil in his left hand. It was awkward. He had been right-handed his whole life. His hand shook. He dropped the pencil twice. He growled in frustration. Tears pricked his eyes. "It's okay," I said softly. "We have time." He took a breath. He gripped the pencil like a dagger. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, he drew a line. Then another. It wasn't perfect, but it was a line. 3, he said, tapping the paper. 3 ropes. I smiled. "Thanks, Frank. I knew you'd know." Eleanor was watching from the doorway. She walked over, sat beside him, and took his paralyzed right hand in both of hers. "That's a beautiful boat, Frank," she said. He looked at her, and for the first time since the stroke, the storm clouds cleared. He squeezed her hand with his good one. "It taught me another lesson. Resilience isn't about bouncing back to who you were before. You can't go back. Frank would never be the Frank of last year. I would never be the Harold of 40. Resilience is about building a new structure with the bricks you have left. Maybe the house is smaller, maybe the walls are crooked, but it still keeps you warm." Spring arrived, and with it, a letter. It was from Leo. He had sent it to Harold and the gang. I read it aloud in the common room. "Dear Harold, Margaret, Frank, and everyone, I'm in college. Community college, but it counts. I'm taking a graphic design course. My professor saw my sketchbook, the one with the sketches of you guys, and she said I have a unique perspective on humanity. I think she just means I draw old people well. I wanted to tell you that I think about the wall a lot. When I get stressed or when I feel like quitting, I think about Frank painting that dog. I think about Margaret's grapes. You guys told me I had time, so I'm using it. I'll come visit in the summer. Save a brush for me. Leo." Margaret clutched the letter to her chest like a love note. "He's going to school," she beamed. "Our Leo." I looked at the mural, at the blue sky Leo had painted. We hadn't just painted a wall. We had launched a life. And that realization gave me an idea for my next chapter. I am 82. But why stop at painting? I called a meeting of the mural committee. "The garden," I said, pointing out the window. "To the sad patch of grass and the 3 dying rose bushes in the courtyard. It's a disgrace," Eleanor said, her botanical instincts flaring up. It needs a bench, Frank said. His vision as sharp as ever. Our garden was waiting. Age is just a number when you have a vision and a garden to love. Much better now, though still slow. A place to sit. It needs tomatoes, Margaret added. You can't have a life without fresh basil and tomatoes. We can't dig, I said. Our backs won't take it. Raised beds, Frank said. We build boxes, waist high. I smiled. Frank, can you draw up the plans? He nodded. Left-handed. But yes. So, that is where we are now. It is messy. We are currently arguing with the administration about the cost of lumber. We are researching which tomatoes grow best in partial shade. We are fundraising by selling prints of our mural, Claire's idea. I am tired. My knees hurt more than they used to. Some days, I just want to sleep. But I don't. Because the tomatoes need to be planted. Because Frank needs to design the boxes. Because Margaret is teaching a new resident, a shy woman named Patricia, how to say good morning in Italian. Buongiorno. She sings across the toast. I look in the mirror sometimes. I see the age spots. I see the white hair. I see the map of every year I've lived etched into my skin. But behind the glasses, the eyes are different. They aren't waiting anymore. They are scanning, looking for the next project, the next connection, the next splash of color in a beige world. If you are reading this, and you feel stuck, if you feel like you've passed your prime, if you feel like the world has written you off, grab a hammer, grab a paintbrush, grab a hand, build something. It doesn't have to be a cathedral. It can be a conversation. It can be a kindness. It can be a tomato plant in a wooden box. Just don't sit in the chair and wait for the lights to go out, because the lights are still on. The music is still playing. And as long as you are here, the dance is yours. My name is Harold. I am 82 years old. I am a builder. I am an artist. I am a friend. And I have a garden to grow.